Hi, everybody. Uh, how's sound going? Let me check it up here. I'm coming across okay. Oh, let's see. Can you hear me? Hello? Oh, great. Hi. Hi. Okay, Gene. Great. Okay, good. Um, I the reason I was a little more concerned, my I've been using my other computer because its camera seemed to be a little better. And but I turned it on today, and for some reason, hey Tennessee, hey Mark, um, the for some reason it wasn't picking up the Wi-Fi. So anyway, I'll have to fool around with that later. Um, anyway, what I wanted to talk about today was something I sort of dawned on me was they talk about the importance of history of a watch company. Hey, Clyde, how you doing, man? Redskins. Abdul. Uh, the the history is pretty much what they want it to be. One of my favorite examples is there was at one time. I don't know if they do it too much anymore. Hey, Rezig. I hope I got that right. The uh, and this is not so much the more recent ones. I mean, like for example, we can FP Jorn is pretty easy to trace because he's the same guy. He's the guy who started it. Some other ones that are getting more a little more problematic is the history of Langenheim, for example. I got on my Langenheim. It no longer has a Lang or a Heim. Hi, Jacob. And so I'm thinking, okay, I wonder how this is going to play down the line. And there has been, Marco Lang has a new company called um, uh, Marco Lang now. What about Wilsdorf and Davis? I This is the only thing I know about sort of an interesting part of the Rolex history. Well, a couple different things. One was the having the girl that went across the English Channel, and she had I guess one of the oyster cases around her neck with a watch in it. And once she got to the other side, the watch was still fine, and they talked about that. What they didn't say is that they had to fish her out of the water because she didn't quite make it on the channel. And so I thought that was always funny. I mean, if she had drowned and they pulled her up or something like a survival from the Titanic, and they said, oh, hey, the watch is still, I wonder if they'd advertise that. Uh, yeah. So there, there's things that they seem to have beyond their history. And hey, Alex, Steve, how you doing? The strap matches the curtains. Yes, Steve, that's right. No, this is my bespoke strap. What I was trying to do, I was trying to get it to match the red indexes. Hi, Roth. Anyway, the where was I? Come on, you guys, focus. It is like about 1,000,000 degrees hot today. It's got a hot with a heat index of double whatever it is. I hope you guys are okay. I got a bottle of water, and I'm all set. So the one of the things that seems to happen a lot is that they sort of invent a history, and this is sort of what I wanted to talk about. Hey, Young Blood and Dr. A and B, how you doing, man? Um, okay, Clive, where are you? Right there, Blanc Pond. Blanc Pond and Breguet and all of those guys, now they're part of Swatch, but to some extent, they seem to try to hold on to that. And by that I mean they try to do the kinds of things along the lines that Breguet or Blancpain would want to have them done. Yeah, 102 degrees. Wow. Yeah. And then on top of that, it's just this crazy mugginess. The what's it called? I forgot. There's the wet index. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, all right. 35 degrees. Oh wow, man! Is that Celsius or Fahrenheit? Sparmirali. No, that's what's it? Anyway, doesn't matter. Okay, so heat index. Yeah, but there was another term for it. Yeah, the heat index is way up there, but God, we used to use it in flying all the time, and now I can't think of it. But it's basically the amount of moisture relative to something or dew point. That's it, Brad. Thank you. Yeah, it's a dew point. Man, I tell you, it'd be hard to get off the ground with the dew point we got now. Hey, Crappy, how you doing, man? Anyway, so and looking at this, the amount of work they do to sort of to doll up these quote realities or unrealities. Monet is one that seems to do it a lot, and they seem to be trying to get back to the level they were of their founder. But they have this guy there, and what they do, they always, if you look at their ads, they have a very nice online presence, and they start off talking about how Monet invented the chronograph. But then they don't say that they've got, who knows what hidden inside their watches. When a watch says, we got a Swiss movement in it, you can bet it's an ETA or perhaps a Salida or something like that. And so, when you see that in it, you say, okay, well, something happened to the history because these guys used to make fine movements and fine watches and so forth. And then some companies, one of the best examples, I think, of a company, or two good examples of companies whose histories, in fact, they may actually be better than their histories. You start with Beauvais. Beauvais started, and the guy started making Beauvais watches. He went to China just at the right time. He took 4 watches with him. This is back in, I think, the early 19th century, late 18th century. So he goes to China, he goes to the imperial court. He's got 4 watches. He comes back with $1 million with 4 watches. So this is Beauvais. So Beauvais gets all cranked up to start doing more stuff with China. And one thing or the other happened to them, and they ran into problems. Okay, so about, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, we'll say, Pascal Raffi comes along, and he wants to bring Beauvais back, but he does it in such a way that they may have actually been better than what they were before he took over. I have a Beauvais watch from the 1940s. And this was sort of the very last of the Beauvais family that was involved, and they didn't seem to be, too much. And so you have this jump, and so Beauvais then he buys this company. I forgot what the name was, but it became Demier, and all that. They make the movements, and they're really good movements. The same is true with H. Moser. The original H. Moser, not quite sure what he did, but then when they came back again, they put together precision engineering for their movement making outfit, and they're making these beautiful watches. So you don't necessarily want to be tied to your history, but some of these guys, hey, Mooney 42, how you doing, man? Tree Dillinger, Lorenzo, okay. Anyhow, this is sort of what I wanted to kick around is that Moritz Grossmann and the German watchmakers, they came along, and Christine Hutter bought the rights to the name of a famous German watchmaker. And I don't think anybody who's paid 2 minutes of attention to Moritz Grossmann doesn't know that there's no connection at all with the original Moritz Grossmann, except in one very important way. And that is that Christine Hutter really wanted to follow the kinds of things that he did. For example, they're using, what is it? I think it's 2/3 plate on their movements. They have all of these things that Moritz Grossmann did originally. So that, I mean, those kinds of things are what Beauvais has done, what Pascal Raffi has done. He won the Grand Prix Aiguille d'Or last year. I mean, in other words, he produced the best watch around, and some of the stuff he does is really incredible. So we have people who can take a name and really do something with it. You have other ones that hang on to a name. Hey, Hans, Rive and Ronan Neslev. Anyway, hi guys. So you have, on the one hand, you have these people who are really doing something with the name that they have adopted or bought or have the rights to. And then there are those with sort of iffy connections to the original, and they're not doing a whole lot, though. One of the big disappointments, I probably have said this more than once, is El Lara. Here they had from 1900 until 1989, they had the most complex watch made. And then in 1989, Patek Philippe made it. And then 2013, I think, Vacheron Constantin made it. So you have all of this stuff going on with watch companies doing things. So what's happening historically? I don't know. I was trying to get some stuff from you guys. What are your views on that? How many steps today? Hans, I haven't been doing so hot with my tracker. It's just been too hot to go outside. Normally I'll do 5K a day, and I haven't been having that much. Man, it's crazy hot here. Okay, it's one reason like Rolex impressive history. Well, see, this is the thing about history. When we talk about Rolex's impressive history, is it the history that Rolex made up, or is it simply the fact that they've been incredibly successful with marketing? And again, then nothing against Rolex. It's just the point that I think that as watch collectors or watch buyers, that to parrot what a watch company has done is not always smart. I don't think, anyway. I think in other words, I don't think we ought to trust them as far as we can see them. I really don't, any of them. Rolex, on one hand, does some great stuff. On the other hand, they're very secretive, and they treat their customers less than the customers that I've talked to would like to be treated. A Rolex history, huh? Gentlemen, don't forget, this is live stream before you leave. Okay, I see you. Okay, guys, let me see what else you guys have. The history of the line, the history of cover marketing. Yes, Hans, that's exactly right. Okay, Hanhart, Oris, Laco haven't changed. That may be right. Is that some of the ones we despair are not the greatest. What's included in the buy of Moritz Grossmann besides the name? Okay, Ronan, that's exactly the question we should be asking. What are we really getting beside the name? And this is where I think Christine Hutter and Pascal Raffi have done the right thing. They haven't just taken the name and start cranking out junk. They've made some really good watches. And the details they go into. I don't know the details of all of them, but I have read them, and they're going down the right path. Gallet's been making watches since 1466. Don't I don't want to say anything about Galileo right now. All right. Okay. Rolex treats me like my ex-wife does. Oh my God. Oh, let's takes all your money and treats you, it won't speak to you. Okay. Yeah, but let me give you an example. Somebody told me, he said, oh, you ought to get a pad. And let me see if I have it here. I got something I wanted to show you. Yeah. Okay. Can you guys, not, you can't see that. Can you see that okay? What this is, this is part of Vacheron Constantin's, where is it? Rats. This isn't working too well, is it? Okay, here we go. The thing is, it's sort of working, but it's the camera can't pick it up very well. Anyway, well, what they have is that they have a gear-like thing that I had up there. It looks like it's called it was an old-fashioned stop gear that they used to use in some of their watches. And somebody sometime wrote a thing that said, well, in 1890, I think, or 1870, one of the two, doesn't matter, was that's when we started to have our Maltese cross that we used. Well, and that's why it is. That's why we have the Maltese cross. I don't know if you can, let me see if I can bring it up here and show it to you. You see it? Oh, that's that little, whoops, wrong side. That little guy right there. That's the Maltese cross. They also have it on their buckle, but I took my buckle off because I'm using this as sort of a beater band. Okay, so they have this. So they have the Maltese cross, and they're saying, okay, this was a logo. Well, it looks sort of like this arresting gear that we had. Okay, and that's how come we have it like that. If you take a look at the arresting gear, which I tried to show you on that with no luck, it's got it doesn't have 4 sides. It's got 5, and it's all this goofy looking thing. I don't think that's where it came from at all. And there's some really interesting things. If you look into the history of what is Geneva and the home of Vacheron Constantin, even in the literature that Vacheron Constantin had, they referred to it as the Protestant Rome. And the reason they call it the Protestant Rome was that this goes back to the religious wars, the French religion wars. Oh, gee, I think they're around like 1600 or something like that. And there were 2 basic sides to it. There were the what were called the French Huguenots, which are essentially with a pejorative name for the French Protestants. And then there were the Catholics. And they were at each other's throat. Essentially, the French crown and the Spanish crown were Catholic. There was a bunch of Huguenots in France they were French Protestants called Huguenots. Now they got spread all over the place. Some of whom came to America under the name they were called the Puritans. Okay, but here's the point. If you look at the Huguenot flag, what's in the middle of it? This great big Maltese cross. And then between the cross things of the cross, you see these little arms from the Calatrava cross. So here you have this combination, the Huguenot symbol being a combination of the Maltese cross and the Calatrava cross. Well, what is the Calatrava cross came from? Were from the for some battle in Spain when they were fighting the Moors, and then the Huguenot cross was made of that plus the Maltese cross, okay, which was back from the Crusades. All right, now the important thing to understand is that I can see somebody saying, look, guys, here we got this residue of the old Huguenot symbol, and there may be a lot of people that aren't going to buy our watches if they see it that way. And so they say, maybe we ought to call it something else. So somebody goes, hey, doesn't that look like the arresting gear? And they come up with that. Well, I suggested this to this one guy who was running the old Vestron content and what was it called? The Hour Lounge. Oh, no, it couldn't have been that way. It wasn't that way at all. It probably was. I mean, you have a very common symbol. You see these Maltese crosses all over the place in Switzerland. And so what are they? What are they from? Well, they're a residue of this terrible, violent history that they had that went on for I don't know how long, 100 years. There's a really good book called The Rival Queens about one queen who was Queen Catherine and Queen Margot. One was the daughter of the other. One was Catholic and the other one was Huguenot. They're crazy. They were crazy back then. Okay, so it's just one of those things that you say, all right, so in the history, they'll smooth it out, okay? That's a minor thing, very minor. But, you know, it could have consequences. I mean, it's like there's certain symbols that, you know, we just don't want to have around associated with a product that we're trying to sell. Okay. Knights Templar. Yeah, the Knights Templar, Hans. Yeah, that, you know, that's sort of like where Wikipedia discovered that. But it was the, yes, it was. And then from the Knights of Malta. But that cross was used also going back, if you look at the Luther, Martin Luther, and his whole movement was, anyway, that's another story. Warrior monks. Well, that's sort of a romantic notion of it. They were all They were all warriors. They were killing each other wholesale. Really terrible. Okay. All right. So, hey, Monsignor Neil, how you doing? Johnny Cupcake. Yes, indeed. That's what I got. It's my Johnny Cupcake shirt. No order of the bloodline. Okay, let's talk about this. This is something. The bloodline of the watchmaker. All right. Okay. We'll try to come up with a neutral name. We'll call it Newman Watches. The founder was Alfred E. Newman. And so from Newman Watches, the Alfred I was making watches in Paris, and then he moved to Switzerland, anywhere you want. And then he had a kid, Alfred Jr. and someone else, and then they keep making watches. At some point, are they going to be interested in it? Interested in still doing it? There was one. I was reading about the Cartier family. And the whole Cartier thing had been sold by, at some point, I think it was the granddaughter of the last Cartier who was actually working in the jewelry/watch business. And so she sold it along with some other conglomerate that owned it. That's another thing, too, is that you have, you know, what about, you have Jaja Lecoutre and Jaja and Cartier worked together. In fact, Jaja made the movement for the first Santos, and so you have all of these things going on. Well, that's, you know, that's cool. But now, ironically, I think Cartier and Jaja Lecoutre are both owned by Richemont, and so they're back together again. It has a happy ending. But where they're going with it is that they act as though, like you take Breguet. The most Breguet watch you're going to find today is F.P. Journe and Roger Smith. Why is that? Well, that's because Daniels, I forgot his first name. Daniels, the guy who invented the coaxial, he had done a book called, I think it was called The Art of Breguet. No, it wasn't Roger Daniels, was it? It's another name. George Daniels, that's who I was thinking of. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys. George Daniels. Yeah, it can happen to anybody. So anyway, so George Daniels, the book that Daniels is best known for is one called Watchmaking. And everybody who's involved in watchmaking has that book. I think I mentioned it's a wonderful book, but terribly organized. The point of it is, yeah, the point of it is that Daniels had the best book on Breguet. F.P. Journe considered themselves a student of Breguet, even though they never worked together. But it was his book that he used. In fact, he referred to him as his mentor. I had a big party for George Daniels before he died and gave him a chronomet surveying. And on it said to George Daniels, my mentor, something, something, something. Okay, so here you have this. So if you want to find Breguet's progeny, so to speak, you go through George Daniels, and then you find it in F.P. Journe, and you find it in Roger Smith. So it's not that history takes some crazy turns, and other stuff is, quite frankly, more or less made up by a public relations department. Monet, that's all they talk about is they're back, back in the good old days, we invented the chronograph. Okay, that was, I sort of went on and on and on. Okay. Hans. Yeah, Clyde, you're right. Hans wins. We're trying to get the right Daniels out. Charlie Daniels, he's another one did them too. Okay, that's enough of that. Okay, Jack Daniels. Hey, Bruce, that's not bad either. Okay, I don't know Austin Daniels. All right, so in terms of history, a lot of people talk about that. Jean-Claude Biver has an interesting personal history. I wonder how much he pads it. Biver, I mean, you look at these interviews that Biver has, and he leaves out big chunks. He, like, for example, he'd say, well, back in the old days, nobody cared who made the movements. And he's right. But back in the old days, they didn't have this high horology, and they did not have these insane prices for watches. And so it became, I think the whole thing, it was sort of came around and bit them that the idea of high horology, and then collectors say, oh, well, that's great. I'll get a high horology watch or a luxury watch. And they got a hamster on a running wheel running the things. And so that's where the whole emphasis on in-house came from. But Beaver, whatever, I don't know how you say his name, Jean-Claude, he leaves that out of these interviews. And the interviewer apparently is sitting there with his, like, oh, really? That's what happened. Okay. Hey, Official Mainspring, how you doing? Let's see. Okay, what else? What are some other histories that are, quote, interesting? Can you think of one that has, I mean, other than somebody who started in the 20th century? See, one of the reasons that F.P. Journe sold a hunk of his company to Chanel was because this kid really wasn't interested in taking it over. And I'm trying to think. There is, who has father and son that's sort of interesting is a German company called Dornbluth. That might be one where, down the road when father leaves, it'll happen. Another one that's sort of interesting that is connected but not connected is Rolf Lang and Marco Lang. But that's sort of goofed up 50 Ways from Sunday because for lots of reasons. Anyhow, Marco Lang, he's the guy who built my watch. He's the brilliant young watchmaker. When I say young, I'm talking about people young relative to me, which means anybody under 60. Anyhow.
It's 4 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay, that's my computer telling me it's 4 o'clock. Okay, another dynamic is Paddock. It's fueling all of the acquisition rumors. I didn't. Paddock. Paddock was a businessman, and Philippe was a watchmaker. Vetronic Swiss Army doesn't have much of a watch history, but their watches are rock solid. Yeah, that's another thing. That's a good point too. I mean, if you look at the independent watchmakers, I don't think any of them come from a line of watchmakers that I can think of. Hey, Andres, does JLC have true horological heritage as more of a Richemont marketing expense? Well, JLC has one, but it goes in funny places, and it's mainly I think with Jaeger, where, like I said, he was the guy who did the movement for the first Cartier Santos, and he probably did it for the tank. Maybe it's the other way around, but see, they go in different places, and you never know. One of the things that happened was that when the quartz crisis hit, man, it really hit hard, and a lot of companies, the only reason they're still around is because they got picked up. They got picked up by places like Richemont. When just this, I think. You have two different things. Another thing that you happen, a lot of times watchmakers are terrible business people. I mean, they just don't know business at all. An exception is FP Journe. But some of these other guys, they want to make these beautiful watches. They're craftsmen. They want to be like Breguet, and their watches are incredible. But business-wise, it's very difficult to survive doing that. Some do, but a lot of them don't. So then they pick up somebody like Marin Speak. Is that right? Peter Marin Speak. His company, he was moved out of his own company. So was Marco Lang. And, so what is the company has their designs? Do they have everything else? Let me see. Who would buy Paddock? I don't know. No idea. I have one. I like Paddock Philippe. All of these companies have some really great watches, I think. It doesn't matter which one. I think if this is, I think another thing too is paying more attention to the actual watch. I had some. I still don't like the practices in companies like Cartier, like IWC, and some of these other companies that it just baloney about what's in their watches. I don't like that either. That's part of their history. To me, it's the darker part of their history. It's like, so it's just not a part they want to talk about. Hey, yeah, Alexander. Yeah, that's a good point about Seiko. That's right. Seiko, that thing does have a history of that. Walter Lang was a genius, made the brand one of the top companies in the world, and only really came to be seen in the 90s. Yeah, that's a lot more complicated than that official mainspring. I think you know it, and I think you know why. There was a big gap between 1933 and 1990. Okay, there was some stuff going on. The Gallet family is still involved with Gallet. I don't know how. There's a bunch of funny stuff there, Clyde. I'm not sure what it is because I saw some stuff from Gallet that was nuts. I mean, this one guy thought, it basically sounded like they were running Vasseur. No, what didn't happen that way. And those kinds of things I pay attention to, because if somebody's not telling you quite right, we'll put it that way, about one aspect of their business, they may not be telling you about a lot of the other parts of it as well. Walter Lang, didn't he direct Metropolis? Yes, he did. He's the guy that directed Metropolis. Except Walter Lang that we're talking about had an E in his Walter Langa. The Marco Lang is no E on the end. Okay. Oh, Fritz Lang, yeah. I happen to be watching Metropolis now. I've got it recorded, so I'm up on that. Okay, okay, the modern language. Yeah, now see, this is yeah. They've made awesome timepieces. I agree 100%. But you know, this is the same thing uh, with Beauvais. Here you got a guy who's got no, he's all he's got is tons of money, and he said, okay, he's going to revive Beauvais, and he did with the quality of watches. Um, Longa's done the same thing. Longa's got gorgeous watches. I really like his. I like Lang also. So you know, you've got all of these things. Okay, so man, I tell you, boy, this half hour went really quick. Okay, tell me some more stuff of some things that you have about well, fractured histories. Oh, hey, Clyde, what watch do you have on now, Clyde? Are you still there? Tipple. Hans? I'm not sure. What do you mean Tipple? Oh, my favorite drink. You're not going to believe this is normally I'm not much of a drinker, so that's I'm no fun at all. There was one that I discovered and really liked. It's called a grasshopper, and it was made with a combination of uh, cream de cacao, cream de mint, all of this other stuff. Boy, that was good. Except one drink and you're on your ear. I mean, that was one, boom. And so that was it for me. I like, we were in Germany a few months ago. I love their beer. I like Hungarian beer. I like German beer. I like Austrian beer. Man, I tell you, I didn't meet a beer over there I didn't like. Snowball, you talking about a drink called a Snowball? That's gin and something else. Okay, wearing a Speedy today. Um, how can you not? Okay, 50th. Oh, Speedy's having its 50th. Yes, that's right. Happy moon landing, moon watch. Absolutely right. Let's see what else. Yay for Christmas. Hate to say it, but one of the funniest fractured history stories is Invicta. The brand name was basically stolen after it went dormant. Really? Um, Tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow. It's one of them. No, no, it's not tomorrow. But upcoming, I have this incredible Invicta collection. Okay, that I want to review. Really fascinating, and it could be that the Invicta that was picked up because the older Invicta has some really amazing things. Okay, let's see. Jeanalt. What's this stuff with you and Jeanalt, Clyde? Okay, today's Omega Day. Hey, Jose, how you doing, man? Um, yes, Swiss with history. Now that's just a brand name. Okay, Majestic 12. Don't forget the Squally family. All right, I won't. Let's see. Did anybody else not been greeted? NS something. Hate to say it, but okay. Fractured history is Invicta. That was a good one. Okay, let's see. Steve McQueen really wore a Hanhart 417 as a daily wear. That's cool to know. Yeah, the Hoyer Monaco was just for a movie. Yeah, I think in that movie too, if I'm not mistaken, they had like 4 or 5 Monacos, Hoyers, because in case one got lost or broken or stolen. And I think when they were finished with it, I don't know whether McQueen took one or not. One was stolen by somebody else, and some other ones, I don't know what happened to it. But really interesting stuff with that, too. Okay, Invicta was bought by Swatch along with a bunch of other brands, including Old America brands. The U.S. South American distributors appropriated the brand without any authorization. Okay. He likes the French-sounding name Gallet. Okay, all right. Swatch eventually settled with them. Hamilton, yeah, Hamilton was another one they bought. Does Hoyer count? Man, there's Hoyer, then there's Tag Heuer. Tag is actually an acronym for TAG. It all should be capitalized, really. And it's the initials of the company that bought Hoyer. So that's where Tag Heuer came from. McQueen was just too cool. He was. Hello. It's a hello, America. And I can't read your name because it's in acrylic, but that's cool too. You can use acrylic here. We're open to acrylic. Hi, Jure. Man, Jure, you're late. The original Bullock car is owned by the son of the guy who bought it. Yeah, there's a video on Jay Leno's Garage. Now, crappy, be nice. You wouldn't want someone to call you Mr. Trump. Okay, it's yours online. I know work. Yeah, work. That's a great thing about retirement. You don't have to go to work. Technically, Tag brought Hoyer, and it never really died. Tag, yeah, you're right. May have massacred the brand, but it never died. Tag actually saved it from dying to put that in there. Yeah, Putin. Oh. All right. Okay. Harwood cooperated with Ford. It read about Mr. Harwood built the first automatic watch, and the watch had no crown. How cool is that? That's really interesting, Alexander. Thank you. And a young Ollie McGraw was hot. No kidding. She was. Oh, come on now. Don't pick on acrylic name. Really, the old Hoyers were nothing crazy special. One could argue that right now is Hoyer's golden age. That could be true. You know, the style of Hoyer is really something. I mean, they got some interesting styles. The Monaco, for example, that's classic square acrylic. Yeah. Okay. All right. Here are a couple things. Interesting review tomorrow. The review tomorrow is on some very, very affordable watches, but some crazy fun watches. Some that I would like myself, but they're very affordable, which is good if you're in the affordable market, and I think we all are at some point. The other thing I want to talk about, mention, is that we've started the Grand Prix picks. Now, what this is, you go to the Grand Prix picks Facebook page, you pick the watches from the Grand Prix entry form from their competing watches, pick the one for each category you think is going to win, and you're going to watch it. I've got a bunch of brand new watches with the boxes and everything. I have some most of them are for men. I have some for women. I got a really nice one for women. They sent me one with with these two bracelets with crystal by the company Swarovski, something like that. I don't know. I'm not too up on women's watches, but it's a lot of fun. You can learn a ton about watches, mainly because what you have to do is you have to find out about what's in a watch. It's in the competition. And if it's made by somebody else, its chances aren't as good as it's manufactured in the company itself. But right now is a good time to enter because you can win a free watch. We're giving away 3 watches, and so that's what it is. All right, wanting to steal the Firefox. Okay. Let's see. Go to the Internet Cafe and you type. Okie doke. All right. Hey, and that's something talking in Russian. Hey, see, Beretta, amazing history, but not regarding watches. That's right, crappy. Russian government is looking for me. Oh, they're looking for everybody. That's None of the governments are interested in me at all. I turned myself in, but I don't have anything for it. Okay, gotta go. Hotter and blazes. Everybody keep cool, hydrate, and hope to see you tomorrow, where we're having our collection review. Take care. I'll see you then. And at the at the the Grand Prix picks. Take care.